So we are expecting in the next few days a decision to be made on what sort of help will be coming for the aviation and tourism sector. So what we know so far is what Andrea Crothers was just talking about, these aviation grants which reportedly are linked to more flights and seats. So given that that's the only detail so far, do you know anything more about it, and what would you make of that?
Oh, hi people. Look, the federal government really has the opportunity to step up here. Governments right around the world have made the choice that they will support the aviation sector by taking ownership stakes in the aviation sector, and that's a critical point. It's a point of influence, because one thing we know about aviation is it will be the first to feel the full heat of any shock. So whether it's a virus or a volcano, whether it's a terrorist attack, we know that those shocks will come into the future. And what we've had to this point is governments responding in an ad hoc way, and in a way that doesn't really provide certainty for workers, for taxpayers and for passengers. And this is an opportunity for the federal government to step up, to put some structure in place, to take some ownership of the sector, so that we can have some shock absorbers for future shocks that we know will come. And we are very concerned about reports that the support for aviation might be in the form of interest-free loans. Now, that really would be a bailout, Pete, and if it doesn't come with a return for Australian taxpayers, that's not the situation we want to be in.
So what do you believe, be specific, what do you think needs to continue? What sort of payment structure would you like to see in place?
Well, this is a sector that is clearly still in crisis. 90% of workers are still deeply affected. Only 11% of aviation workers have returned to pre-COVID levels in terms of their hours. And nearly 25% of the workforce has been discarded. And of that 25%, 35% of them had over 20 years experience. So unless the federal government comes in here with a package, we say an aviation keeper package, that should be directed at workers and passengers, that ensures that companies have obligations to retain skilled workers, that ensures that companies have obligations to provide affordable and accessible flights, tied aid in the form of wage subsidies and grants, then I think we are missing an opportunity here. And if it is that the government is contemplating handing out money to companies, then that handout must come with a public stake in these aviation companies and with conditions applied, so that we don't end up seeing that money going into the pockets of executives, or, as we've seen in the last few weeks, going to the unedifying and destructive notion of companies using that money to fight each other for market share.
You just heard from Alan Joyce, the Qantas chief, talking about how these border shutdowns need to end. Gladys Berejiklian, the New South Wales Premier, said yesterday there is this fascination with shutting borders after only a couple of cases. Now, there's different governments that have been doing this. So do you believe that the time for that has got to come to an end now?
Well, Alan Joyce is a corporate leader and Gladys Berejiklian is the state leader. Neither of them are doctors, and they don't provide health advice. Australia has been the leading light in the world economy about how we've dealt with this virus and we've protected our people, and that has to be the foremost concern. Of course, when it's safe to do so on the health advice, we should open to the extent possible. But the government has to understand this is an industry in crisis. There's a long way to go with this virus yet. And if they're going to provide aid, it needs to come with conditions, so we don't have the spectre of Qantas taking hundreds of millions of dollars that they have done under JobKeeper, and then contracting out 2,500 jobs that still need to be done. That is not a satisfying result for the Australian public, for workers, for the safety of the industry in terms of the skills drain in jobs, and for passengers who need affordable and accessible flights as we open the economy back up.
OK, well, that announcement from the government, the aviation package expected, as we said, any time now. Michael Kaine, thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Peter.